One of the hottest topics, and people are asking me to talk about, is anxiety. Like when a patient comes to my practice, they can come in with any type of symptom. And to blame everything just on anxiety is not something I do. And my goal is to get you off medication and to help you understand anxiety, because people don't understand it because it's so complicated. Because the thing about anxiety is it's counterintuitive. Your intuition wants you to do something and you think it's the right way. It's actually the wrong way. When you allow it, you face it, then you are training your brain to allow those sensations and not perceive those sensations as a threat. The key is right now is not to completely remove stress. It's how you interpret stress and being aware of when your body's in stress. That's all it is. The problem is the perception of the threat and danger from modern day stressors. You survive that stressor at work or stressor in life. Now it reinforces that behavior. So what's your intuition? Your intuition is to avoid it, is to run away from it. And you see this all the time. And I showed you and I shared you so many of my experiences in my personal life and with my patients, is that they're avoiding a lot of things in their life and they are losing the ability to live quality of life. Anxiety is something that you want to have a relationship with, because anxiety is good in the short run. You want to feel anxious at times. You want to be protected. You want to be able to avoid a danger, and you want to perceive that danger and not be injured or hurt. What is the part of the brain that tells you you're in danger? Is the amygdala. The thing is that amygdala learns by pairing and association, and that pairing is from previous memories and experiences that are hardwired. And the amygdala starts to becoming more attentive. The networks from the amygdala to the prefrontal cortex are much stronger than the other way around, which we call bottom up, which is from the bottom, from the temporal lobe all the way up, is much stronger than the prefrontal neocortex, that new brain. So that takes control. They call it amygdala hijack. It just hijacks your system. The amygdala also, what structure does it sit right next to? It sits right next to the hippocampus. The hippocampus is your area of memory. It's the area that consolidates memory. And it so happens that the amygdala and your memories are right next to each other. So it tells you that the amygdala learns by pairing from previous memories. Memories also occur in the prefrontal cortex and those connections, but those connections are weaker. And believe it or not, in an amygdala hijack, when that takes over your brain, it kind of at times shuts down the hippocampus. So the traumatic event can actually take over the hippocampus where you don't even remember the event. So the memory is there for protection. It protects you from injury and from death and for you to survive. So that's the function of the amygdala. And the amygdala is sitting around also just monitoring the situation. It's monitoring the cortex. It's monitoring all those words that are being used and all of these things. But it's also monitoring your senses and the environment and the input. It's a great structure. The thing is, the problem is that it's not designed to work in a system from your new part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. So this is what we call a paradox. These two systems are working against each other constantly. How do you get them in harmony? You get them in harmony by understanding and becoming consciously aware of these programs in your brain. And those programs are habits that are over and over and over again that are hardwired. Amygdala and avoidance is where I want to focus on, because that is so prevalent. MRIs with claustrophobia, airplanes, social gatherings, where they call it agoraphobia, public speaking. So when you speak in public, right, and you've had an experience where you were shamed or there was some maybe rejection, that interpretation of that event with all of the senses, there could have been a certain spotlight, there could have been a certain structure where you were sitting, a smell, a feeling, a touch, all of that experience gets stored inside that amygdala, that before you know it, that amygdala starts firing and it sets off that sympathetic nervous system of fight or flight. And then you start feeling symptoms in your body. Then what happens to all of us is we start interpreting those body symptoms as danger. And when I say counterintuition is, are we going to face that experience of that sensations, or are we going to fear it and release more adrenaline and more fear and more tension. And that's where the problem lies. Avoidance is a huge problem. Intuitive wise, you actually want to avoid it because that's your intuition, is to avoid it, because that caused you the symptoms. So I'm going to avoid it. Why do I need to be in that situation again? Why do I need to ever have that experience again? I felt like I was going to die. That's how the brain starts learning conditioning, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So we want to stop that in its tracks by understanding it and becoming aware of it. That's the amygdala, and that is your protection area. And that fires, and it could hijack, it could take over your whole entire system. So when I talk about the counterintuition, is that, we do things that make things worse. When you get really in that state of perceived danger, you're going to fight it and grab onto something. And when you grab onto something, you're actually increasing that fear adrenaline. You're tightening your muscles, and you're making it worse and worse and worse. The intuition is to do that. And that's where we get faked out. And that's where people don't understand, is that actually the opposite is let go of it. Allow it and face it. I keep on saying the word allow it, is because that's how, over time, by allowing it over and over again, because it's going to hit you every time. When you allow it, the amygdala starts to learn through exposure that you are safe. And that's it. Once it learns you're safe, it pairs off. It just becomes disconnected. And you could become safe in that environment. Because, basically, anxiety is loss of safety and security. And when you feel safe and secure, you're more open. You feel better.